Welcome back to another episode of the Resellers Mindset Podcast. My name is Mike, also known as the Used Book Guy on YouTube, along with my friend and fellow full-time reseller, Johnny B. We help people start and grow their reselling businesses from the ground up. We also have a weekly Zoom call and private Discord for all YouTube members. Head on over to youtube.com/usedbookguy to join the channel and gain access to the full-length podcast, Zoom call, and private Discord today. Let's get into this week's episode.
What is up, everybody? Welcome into another episode of Resellers Mindset Podcast. Mike next to Johnny over here. As always, today's topic is a interesting one, and it's how providing a service as a reseller can level up your business. Johnny has a real life experience. Sitting behind him on his desk, if you're watching on YouTube, he's got a bunch of books on a little fold out table. So he's just going to take us away. We're kind of going to see how you providing a service, no matter what category you sell in as a reseller, can basically grow your business and get you relationships that otherwise you wouldn't be able to have. So Johnny, take us away.
Right. Our job is to acquire goods to sell online. How we acquire those goods is up for debate, and that's the purpose of what we're talking about here today. But on the focus of the service industry, I heard this from Christopher Lynn a few years ago, and this is an excellent point he made. There are two things everybody wants: time or money. And if you can figure out a way to do both, you've won. And he's absolutely right in that. I've done business with this idea and concept a lot. And if I can provide somebody's time, like I'm taking the books away, I'm doing the work to make them go away. They're not doing the work, I am. And also giving them money for the stuff I'm taking with, I've won. And usually I can get the better deals that way. You could do this concept at a library sale. If you can give them time by showing up an hour early, maybe helping them set up if you're sign up for that Friends of the Library thing. My case, I've opened a bookstore, so I'm allowing people to buy, sell, and trade. And I don't even have donations up there, but the books that come in here, most people don't go for the me buying the books from them route. They just flat out donate them to me most of the time, even though it's not something I specifically asked for. I'm a solution to a problem. I'm providing a service to them. And beyond that, the next tier up, they trade books. They brought me books and they're taking away what I've deemed undesirable. And what they've given me, a portion of those are desirable for my online business. So they're providing me a service. That's another point. They're giving you the service of books coming to you. And then there are other aspects of this, like if you're a solution to the flea market guy, and most of those guys are storage unit guys, to be honest. If you make their life easy and they just open the truck and you take the boxes after you built up that relationship, they don't got to work as hard. And I got to tell you, they appreciate that.
The problem is, though, you just hit it on the head. I think with the service you're going to provide as a reseller, there is a lot of work that comes
Yes.
with it. And unfortunately, a lot of resellers, you know, they don't realize the work it takes to get through some of this stuff. And the service, yeah, your storefront kind of works for you. People bring you the stuff, but there's also cases where, you drive somewhere, you go somewhere, you got to pick up all the books. And I've always said in all my experiences when I bought or went to a large pickup of books or CDs or DVDs, they're never just boxed up sitting at their front door, right? Like I got to go up steps, I got to go down steps, I got to weigh the books if I'm paying for them. There's a lot of work that goes into this, but I
Yes.
do think there's a lot to be said about when you provide that service. Word of mouth spreads. All of a sudden, you're known as like, hey, this person comes and does, clean outs, and they give your card, and then somebody else calls you. So the work can be paid off, but it also can sink your ship quick. And that's why before somebody jumps into like, hey, that's why we tell everybody don't start with crazy amounts of inventory. Don't buy a truckload full of clothing or sneakers or books to start out because you don't know what processes look like for your business yet. But on the flip side, I always tell everybody in the book world, people complain that, oh, well, I go to my libraries and they say, they don't want to work with me with their extra donations. The benefit you have is that you can get the stuff before it goes to the library. Why?
Yes.
Because those people have to take it to the library versus you showing up at their door and taking it from them. You save them all of the work, all of the heavy lifting, and that's where you can, have an edge on other people. And listen, I'm an Amazon scanner. I just scan things. The only edge I have against the next person scanning is how many items I can scan, right? There's no difference if me and Johnny are copycat people. We both scan to sell on Amazon. Who's going to make more money? It's going to be who can scan more items, who's going to put in more time. And that's all it comes down to. It's the same thing when you're providing a service. It's going to be more work, but it's going to give you an edge over your competition.
Now, I will say, there have been times where I've had donations back to back to back to back, and it was too much. I wasn't at that particular instance I'm referring to. I wasn't set up to handle that kind of volume that quick in that quick amount of intervals. So I had to, okay, I have to adjust for this. So I had to design a whole area where overflow donations can get funneled to. Because what happened when the tables are full? Well, I guess we got to floor it. What happens when you floor stuff? You trip over it and got to walk around. It gets in your way. It clogs up your day to day. And I can't have that because it disrupts the entire flow. And maybe I have to stay an hour or an extra 30 minutes. Because if you add up it's going to be seconds you walking around. But if you compound that over the course of the day, the deal with it later pile, well, the deal with the later pile makes you stay later, is the end of the thing with it. And then if you let that go beyond a day, well, you're just screwed at that point. So yeah, even with my model, I've had to make adjustments and tweaks that I couldn't account for. Like, when are we gonna get a mad rush of donated books, right? Or I had a lady show up in 2 vehicles of books. I wasn't prepared to handle 2 vehicles at a time. I got through it. It took my agenda for the day had to get shoved aside because I had to deal with 2 carloads of books filled to the brim, just like a reseller would do. And I was like, man, there goes my day. But it was good because there was profitable stuff in there. It's a good problem to have, but it was still a problem, keyword there. So I have to turn a problem into a non-problem. That requires us thinking as business owners to, okay, if this happens again, what can I do to prevent this from not being a burden on my business? Because a good thing can become a burden, unfortunately.
Another big thing I wanted to hit on is you have to treat your business like a business and not a charity, right? So say if, Johnny reaches out to me and says, "Hey, I see you pick up books." Okay, Johnny, send me a few pictures. He sends me pictures. It's all like microwave cookbooks. Like you have to walk away from these types of situations and not be like, "Well, I'm going to just go do it because they need the books gone." So many resellers are like they let themselves get taken advantage of in some of these situations. And if
Mhm.
it doesn't feel right, if it doesn't look right, if it doesn't seem right, 100% walk away. You are in control of the situation. You are the one providing the service. Don't feel like, well, this, old lady reached out to me, so I got to go get the books regardless, even though they're all, moldy and falling to pieces. You have to understand everything you do is a business transaction and you provide a service, so you control where the conversation goes when you have this, because we tell people, hey, have up flyers, business cards, everything you possibly can. And with that comes you being in control of where the conversation goes. You want photos. Why do you have 1,000 DVDs you're getting rid of, right? Like probing questions. Why do you have, all of these sneakers you want to get rid of all of a sudden? You have to make sure that the opportunity makes sense for your business because the service is a lot of work. And if you are providing a service, you should always be basically getting a better price than just going to a thrift store, right? Well, I'm not going to go to somebody's house and buy all their books off the shelf for $2 or $3 a piece. It just doesn't work like that way, even though you might feel obligated to, or somebody gives you a sob story like, I have 4 cats and they're starving, and can you please give me X amount of dollars for my stuff? When clearly it says in the ad that you pay X amount. Don't feel obligated in any way, shape, or form to give more because of sob stories. And honestly, everybody's got some kind of story out there, and the world is, as shady as it's ever been.
I got a perfect example of what you're talking about. So I did a library pickup. Great. And it led to a few weeks later, I started getting calls for me to pick up. And I don't give out my number these days too much. My library had the number. And after the third one of these, I'm like, how did you get my number? And they're like, oh, my library that I dealt with gave me your number. And so I turned into the pickup guy for a minute, which I didn't plan on doing, nor did I want to be the pickup guy. I did them, and then I lightly explained to the library, I just want to deal with just you. I understand what you're doing here, but because I live in the middle of nowhere, these pickup places were 45 minutes here, 30 minutes here, 20 minutes over there. The one lady I did, she was great and fantastic, and I felt kind of privileged. Her husband had passed away, and she honestly wanted to get rid of all of her husband's book because she didn't want to have that mental thing with her. And I kind of felt bad because they were really good books, and she just wanted them out of her life. But I was providing her a service, to move on with her life kind of deal. Versus the lady who had 20 books and wanted me to pay for these books, but wanted also me to drive 40 minutes away to pick them up. I managed to find a couple other deals in the area to make it worth my time, and begrudgingly did it because that's the other thing. You don't want the word to get out that you refuse stuff too. But then you're handcuffed into got to do every single pickup if that happens. But if you kind of do what I did, you politely explain it to the library. I'm not set up to do this kind of business. I'm set up to do business this kind of way. They'll completely understand as long as you word it to them properly, and they'll stop handing out your number.
Yeah, that's I mean, the libraries I work with, I'm definitely not telling them to put my number out because what happens here is what you just said. Instead of the people feeling like they got to drag it into the library and then you get it afterwards,
Mm-hmm.
you got to go to them, and that's when, oh, like I want no parts. And some of the
20 bucks
libraries,
here, 5
yeah,
bucks there. No,
no.
thank you.
No, and some of the libraries I work with are a little bit further away, like you're saying, 40 minutes. So that
Yeah.
just wouldn't make sense if I had people in that town calling me all the time, like, hey, I got books. It's just like, well, I'm not driving 40 minutes for a box of books, even
That's
if it's
one way
free.
40 minutes too. You're talking over an hour of your time just to do the travel.
Yeah, but I mean, you didn't know that until you really, and most people don't, right? That's the whole thing of when you're providing these services, you learn as you go what works for you. And I used to be the person that would jump. Somebody text me, hey, I got books I need picked up. And I'd be like, all right, today I'm going. It's like, no, now it's much more calculated. It's going to be on my terms, my time, when it fits into my business. And I was stupid. I should have tell you, I was the most inefficient picker upper service provider there was. And I finally realized from Deb being like, hey, what are you doing going all this way to pick up books when you should be thrifting? And then I kind of realized, like, okay, where's the money coming in from the business, right? You can make great money on providing a service and doing pickups or buying in bulk, right?
Yeah.
Cleaning out a thrift store or, this or that opportunity that comes along. But you always have to stay true to what your business is and fit this in addition to what you have. That's the big takeaway. You can't sacrifice a sourcing day to go deal with a free pickup or a bulk buy unless you know it's going to be super profitable. Then it makes sense. But even then, I would caution you on the side of why is somebody getting rid of a truckload of, polo shirts or Nike sneakers? Make
Yeah.
sure things are vetted. If it's too good to be true, it ain't true. That's one thing I've had one case where I went to a free pickup and the dude had all Stephen King first editions. That's it was one of those things where, I was kind of new. So like I know Stephen King's worth money, first edition's worth money. But looking back now, like that was my best deal I ever had. And like if that popped up today, I'd be like, there's no way somebody's walking away from, a 50s first edition Stephen King's. But his new wife wanted the stuff he got when he was with his old wife gone, and I just happened to be the guy. I paid 15 cents a pound, and I probably made like $2,000 just off Stephen King. And I probably should have kept some of them. They're like I probably should have kept like the Stephen
They're only
King
going to
It
go up in
first
value.
edition. I
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
but listen, you live and you learn with this business, right? It probably never will happen again, but I understand now that there are situations that are really good, whether you're paying or whether it's free. You're like, oh my God, this is great. And then there's times where the last free pickup I did was the books were in the basement, and I go down there, and it's like, I'm not even kidding. It was like 3 IKEA bags full of microwave cookbooks. Just like, you know, shit, I'm here. I got to get rid of their books. They're in the basement, and I'm just carrying IKEA bags full of microwave cookbooks that I know I'm not even going to take out of the trunk, that I'm just going to have to donate somewhere else.
Just leave the
But
trunk open and hope they fly out.
dude, that is the reality of it, though. It's all a balancing act of understanding and vetting better, right? I probably should have asked for more photos of exactly what they were getting rid of and just been a little bit more detective work on the front end so you're not getting skunked on the back end.
I have a similar story. I think we're just exchanging stories at this point. This is fun. Um, It was on our call, actually. My landlord came in. He just got back from a storage unit thing, and he just said, "Hey, they got books up the road if you're interested." I'm like, no, I was on the call. I don't really want to leave the call. I guess I'll go look. I'm like, okay, guys, I'll be right back. I go up there. I didn't even bring tubs. I was planning just to look around and leave. I was dumb. Anyway, I get there and they have books kind of lined out of the storage unit. It's an outside unit area. And then they had some more on the inside. The outside ones were okay. I go on the inside though. It's a table full of horror books. There are Stephen King there, but it's all horror in my old vintage paperbacks. I'm like, how much do you want for it? My eyes light up. And they're like, I don't know. What do you think? Would you take $100? Yes, their eyes light up. I'm like, okay, I'll be right back. I come back, I type in the call. Guys, big score. But I gotta go pick it up. I'll be right back. And I get there, I get my tubs out, and there's a whole family of them. There's moms, dads, uncles, or whatever. So one of their relatives died. This is his locker. They pack it up for me. Even grandma's packing stuff up. I'm kind of just standing there, blown away that they're packing it up for me. They're hoisting my tubs up there, the guys at least. The girls are packing the tubs and rolling they took my cart from me. I'm like, what's my cart? But they're doing all the work for me, and I'm just standing there. I should have paid up for what they were doing, but I gave them what they wanted, and they were so happy. I don't know the last time they look poor, honestly. I don't know the last time this family had seen $100. So to them, I was providing them not necessarily a service. They were definitely providing me a service. But it's kind of an exchange of, I don't know how to put it, Mike. An exchange of mutual benefit to each other. They're getting money and they're getting their time back. Because if you're trying to sell books yard sale style, if you have to put that stuff away at the end, your back's gonna hurt. They were probably very excited to see me, knowing they wouldn't have to do the end of the day work because I was taking it all. Then I got back and then I had to do the work. They weren't with me.
When I did my little yard sale, my books it was $1, then two for $1, and then free because I didn't want to lug them back in.
Yeah,
So
nobody wants to lug them back in at the end. That's the other thing. That's another thing of service. If you're doing the garage sale bit or the estate sale bit, great. Call me when you're done, and you don't have to do the put away. Same for library sales. I'll do it. Just let me take them all, or at a very low rate. So that is a service you're providing them, and you have a bargaining chip there. Like, you can get out of the back-breaking work that I know this to be if you give me a discount or a deal or free.
So I show up, my library sale, I show up with donuts and coffee and
Mhm.
munchkins. I help set it up. We set up all the tables. All the books are in banana boxes in this little room they have where they take the donations. And then I shop the sale, go through, scan everything. And then afterwards, everything that doesn't sell after fill a bag day, I go clean out and take. So, and I don't pay for the stuff that's left over. I pay for every time I go to get donations, I pay. Bring the donuts. You got to bring donuts, right? They appreciate it. They're like, oh, yeah, we appreciate it. And then I'll shop the sale. I'll pay full price, whatever their library sale prices are that year. I'll pay full price for the stuff I take, and then I get everything left over for nothing. And there is a lot to be said, but I do think you hit on a good point. You can't, okay, I go in and I see a bulk buy, right? I'm going in and I'm paying 15 cents a pound, or maybe I'm even doing free. And for example, the Stephen King lot, right? Like that dude's stuff is worth way more than 15 cents a pound, dude. Like
Yeah.
that's like, and I kind of knew that at the time, but you can't sit down and try to be all square with every single piece you get. It just, I understand the mentality of, whoa, if it's a $50 book, why are you giving them 15 cents? Okay, well, I would challenge somebody that said that. Well, you go through every single book and you pay them whatever you think's right. 50%, whatever. I'm here to tell you what happens if you come across $1,000 book. You're going to give them $500 for it. Most of you aren't going to do that. So that argument's out the window right away. Your price and your service is what it is. Don't feel like, oh, like Johnny, like, yeah, okay, well, $100, he knows, the Halloween book sitting there's $100 bill alone, everything else is profit. But they just need the stuff gone. And if you can give them the money that they need in that situation, because maybe that $100 turn their lights back on or, fed them for the week, right? Like everybody's situation is different. And I think that's where like resellers get a bad rep. It's like, Well, you're ripping people off because you're buying something for $1 and selling it for $50. It's just arbitrage. It's just supply and demand, and you can't be the person that's always like, well, I'm going to give them as much money as I can. You won't make it as a business, no matter what category you're selling in.
Right. Now, with my $100 offer, I had the expectation of them countering, and they didn't. And then after they accepted, I just went into, okay, I need to get this done as quickly as possible because I know it's going to take a lot of work. After all that was done, taking a minute to stop and think about it, I probably should have paid him more. I would have paid him more. I mean, but once they accept, it goes into your other business mind of getting the work done as quickly as possible because you got even more work to do when you get back. You don't take a second to think. It's not we're trying to screw people out of money. We just get in go 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 mode. Um, and there's something to be said there. Like even you probably would have paid up more if they countered. Same for me. That's the expectation. But if everybody's in agreement, that's the thing. It's a contract, a verbal contract. Everybody agrees. We can't stop to feel bad about it, even though we do as human beings. We are humans after all. Some of us aren't, granted, but most of us are human beings. We're decent people. And it's business at the end of the day. It's not personal. We tend to make it personal sometimes, at least the good humans I've mentioned. Um, and we have to just go about our day. Um, However, if it's a repeat person, maybe we put some good karma back up, and we know we kind of should have given a little bit more last time. Maybe I'll pay him up a little more this time for this thing, just as like, hey man, this is great. Just take the extra $30 and keep it. It's fine. It's cool. You can counteract something if it's on a repeat person. Those people up there, I'll never see them again. There's no way for me to give them an extra 50 or something. There's not possible.
Yeah, that is true because I've actually done that. I used to buy DVDs at 20 cents a piece. I had a DVD guy. I was paying him 20 cents a piece. I got like two batches from him in a row that were just terrible. And I was like, listen, dude, it's going to be 10 cents a piece. And then the next batch I got from him, it was like this stuff was golden. And then next time he reached out, he's like, "Hey, can we do 20 cents a piece again?" I'm like, "You got
No
it, dude."
problem. Exactly.
The last one was, good stuff and like he appreciated it. And but this is an ongoing relationship that I
Right.
have
You can
whenever
only
he
do it with the ongoing ones.
now there has been situations where I've ran into like some collectors. Both times it was with CD people. One was like an ex radio personality that had a bunch of CDs, and the other one was just like this huge music lover, collector, rich guy. And I show up and they're aware that it's 10 cents a piece, but if people think they have certain pieces that are worth like more money, um, I'm perfectly open to being like, hey, like and you kind of know like the situations, right? Like I knew like where I was going to pick this stuff up. Like it's a affluent area. Like this guy's got, lots of money. The house is like $1 million house, right? I'm rolling up in the 2011 Sonata before it got totaled. And I'm like, all right, I go in and this guy, he's got like surround sound speakers playing. It's like I'm in some kind of like concerto, right? Like, and he's like, yeah, I got all these CDs. I'm a huge collector. So, we're just talking, like the guy was like a huge Bob Dylan fan. He's like met Bob Dylan and all this. He's telling me all these crazy stories. I was hanging out with Cyndi Lauper and Bob Dylan. I'm like, all right, dude. I'm like, this guy's got good stuff, right? You know it. So he's like, like some of the stuff might be worth decent money. I'm like, well, do you know like kind of what you think's worth decent money? And we looked the stuff up together right there on my phone on eBay, and I paid up for some of it. I think it's all right to pay up for some of it if people feel like they have something that's really worth it. I don't
Hmm.
think there's anything wrong with being like, hey, all right, we can look it up together. Some of the stuff he picked out, it was junk, right? I'm like, this ain't worth nothing. He's like, all right, well, what about this set? I'm like, oh yeah, this set's, $60 set. I'll pay you, $10 for it. And he's perfectly fine with that. He doesn't feel like he's getting only the 10 cents for it because it's worth a lot more than that. But there are situations where you can pay up, but you can't get carried away with this. You can't be like, all right, every book we got to look up. Like you'll be there for 10 years.
Right. And here's another instance of that. There's a gentleman I see from time to time. He doesn't really buy much from my store because he is a collector of books. He wants high-end premium stuff. He's a retired teacher. And if you don't know, those guys, they don't make much money. He comes to my shop one day with these pair of books. I instantly know they're very, very valuable. mainly because of who he is, and I recognize the books in question. They are signed first edition, special deluxe edition Michael Crichton books, $100 bills or over each. He walks up to me, he's like, "I need to sell this. I need Christmas money for my children." I'm like, "Oh, good God, okay."
He's got you reeled in already, dude.
I
He probably don't
know.
even have kids.
No, he does. He does.
Did you ask for proof? Show me your kids.
Pull out your wallet. If you ain't got photos, we ain't doing business. So I go look him up. I'm like, damn, these money. And I know I could get a really good deal. But the human in me, not the business owner, the human in me walks these books back out. How much do you want for them? He's like, well, I want this. He spits out the retail price. He already knows what they're worth. I'm like,
Yeah, yeah.
I can't do that, John. I'm in here to debate about it. He's like, I know. What's the best you can do? I'm like, you don't want to know what the best I can do is because it's a bad number. And he's like, what's the best you can do? I really need Christmas money. I'm like, John, you're going to take your books back home. You're going to look around for a part-time job and keep these books because you and I both know these are going to triple in value over the next 10 years. And you really don't want to sell them. He kind of sighed at me. He said, you're right. Thank you. I didn't really want to sell them. I know. You take these books out of here right now, sir, and go get hit to job hunting. He's like, okay. And he did actually. And he ended up getting his kids Christmas presents. I was like, good. Because I would felt really bad buying them for what I was going to offer. Like terrible. Like it was in the middle of December too.
You should have said you can take some books. I mean, if he's a book collector, they should be fine with getting books from their dad or grandpa that is avid about books.
Right. Like, dude, you need to pass these on to your kids. They're going to be worth a fortune to some other reseller they sell them to down the
Yeah.
road.
Yeah, that's it's crazy the situations you find yourself in when you put yourself out there, right? Because we were talking about it. We have a lot of coaching calls behind the scenes, and just being a thrift store person, I think the days are numbered. It might not be days, it might be years, but I think as more stores scan stuff and they prices are going up, right? You have to start thinking of other ways to get the inventory to come to you at a price that is, and the best thing about providing a service is the price you can get the stuff at, right? Paying 10 cents per DVD, CD, like you're never going to lose. Even if they got 10 million of these things, like you're always going to win. And with books, free pickup, all you're investing is your time, but you still have to make sure it's worth it, right? The quantities there. There's so much that goes into it besides just, oh, I'm just going to be a thrift store reseller. And sooner or later, you're going to get to a bottleneck where you can't like continue to scale your business. And what do you got there? What is that big coffee table book?
I had some examples. I was waiting until you're done, but I'll go
Go.
ahead since you
And
called on me.
I seen a shiny big blue book if you're watching over on YouTube, and it distracted me.
Yes. So this is from yesterday's donation, and I'm going to give an example of what comes with donations. So the Art of Maria Hosoda, it's a very fancy anime book. It's about 30 bucks. I already scanned it. It was the first one I scanned when I saw it, like, oh, that looks expensive. But it's a decent book. But this was free. But you're also, what happens with donations? You're going to get stuff like this. This came in the same batch. There's nothing alike with these two books. And I can tell you right now, I don't even need to scan this Debbie McComber small town Christmas book is worthless. It's going straight to the storefront. I ain't even going to waste my time. But when I get stuff like this, I need to look this up right now. This looks like money, and it was money. And then there's a mix of it over here. But that's the other thing. Again, you're providing a service. You're going to get really good stuff, and you get really terrible stuff too. You just have to roll with the punches on that. And the terrible stuff, as we always talk about, you need a solution for this terrible stuff.
Oh yeah, yes you do. Yes.
Mine's a storefront. Yours may be a donation thing or a buyback program, or hell, maybe even eBay lots. If you got enough trash, you can maybe turn into some silver pieces.
I got enough trash and I refuse to even attempt to turn them into silver pieces. I think that's a good point to kind of hit on too, is when you provide a service, you have to take it all, which means you have to have an outlet for everything. And in the media world, just as reference, for those that don't sell media, you're probably looking at a 10% accept rate on like a good day, maybe 15 if it's a really good day, but a lot of the times you're going to be at 5%. And in my last video I posted, I got one IKEA bag full from the whole carload of donations from the library. So just imagine a full car. I'm talking there's no space besides the driver, right? I got the passenger seats, got boxes, the trunk, the back seats, the floors. I got one IKEA bag full of books from a full car of free books. So what are you going to do with the rest of them, right? Because clearly you still got a carload of stuff you got to get rid of. And that's just as important as, you know, even thinking about going down the road of being like, hey, I'll take it all, right? Everybody wants to be the take it all person, but what are you going to do with it all? What are you going to do with all the stuff that ain't worth it? And if you get caught up, what Johnny just said, trying to list the Debbie McComber next Christmas books, trade paperback books, you ain't going to make it.
You gotta have a better solution to that. I mean, you're better off taking it out back and shooting it. They make a good point. I mean, that same library that was giving out my number, that pickup, we were filling up. We brought 2 vehicles. We honestly needed to do a second trip and or bring a third vehicle, but there was only 2 of us. But we ended up filling both cars to the ceiling, under the seats. She could not see out the back window. You shouldn't do this, by the way. She couldn't see out the back window, and she getting in there and starting up my truck. She's used to driving it, by the way, but she's like, I can't see. I'm like, good luck. That's bad business. We should have made a second trip, but it's like 45 minutes away, and then
Nah,
doing that.
dude, I'm the same way. I just make sure I can see my side mirror through the
Yeah, she
passenger
could see
seat.
out the side mirrors. That's what I told her to do. Like, just use your side mirrors. Go slow. It's okay if you go slow. We're not in a rush to get back. The job's done. If people want to pass you, that's fine. Just get over on the side, let them pass you. Don't care. You go as slow as you want to go.
Remember, you provide the service, which means you say you take everything and you show up, and there's a lot of junk that they didn't send pictures of, but it's still books or it's still clothing or it's still shoes. You still have to take that. You can't be the person that's like, well, I'm not going to take this stuff. Like you're, I don't, maybe it's me, Johnny. Maybe I feel like your word is all you have anymore. Like, right? I don't know. Trust is a big thing. Like if I say I'm going to go do something, I'm going to do it. I'm not going to get there and be like, well, I can only take this. Now it's different, right? If my car is filled up, I can't take no more. Like they can see that I can't take no more. But
Physics don't apply here.
yeah, and you know what? It sucks when I'm down in the basement and I'm loading up the microwave cookbooks that I know were worth nothing. But that's part of the handshake deal we did virtually. Like, hey, come get rid of all this stuff. And with the microwave cookbooks comes the anime books and comes the first edition books. So it's all a balancing act. But you can't be that picky person. Like, well, I don't want to take this. That doesn't work for me. I'm gonna leave that behind. And then like, I don't know. I just feel like bad news spreads fast, especially word of mouth, especially
Yes.
with media. It's a lot of older folk. A lot of people are, retired and active in the community. So like word spreads real quick, hey, don't 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 have this guy come pick up your books because he ain't gonna take it all.
Right. And there's something we said again, there's a lot of repeatable sourcing that is only specific to them. If you're doing a repeatable source, and again, like your junk DVD thing, libraries for me, I tell them, I know I cleaned out everything last time, but my business model has changed. I only am doing this kind of stuff, or I'm only doing paperbacks now. Can we renegotiate? You do that. You do run the risk, and you accept that you run the risk of them like, no, we really need a pickup guy, and you'll lose that source. That's just the breaks. But if your business model has changed, you need to stick to that change. You can't make exceptions, in my opinion, or else you're stuck doing the work you're trying to get yourself out of by making um what's the word I'm looking for? Exceptions to your own rule. But it's okay to modify your business terms and your service terms if your business model has changed. But you have to have a polite conversation and also let yourself accept the fact that you may lose that connection because of that change in your business. And then you'll have to make new connections to replace them.
That's what happened with the libraries that I work with. They used to the thrift stores that they would work with, they would come and get the books. Well, all of a sudden, the thrift store said, "We're not coming to get the books no more. You got to bring them to us." So now the library has volunteers loading up their personal vehicles, taking the books to the thrift stores to drop them off. Well, what do you know? The library finds my ad. Hey, this guy's ready to come pick up our books. Boom, that thrift store just lost that library for life. I mean, I could literally, if I stay in this area, Johnny, every month I get a free car full of freshly donated books
Yep.
forever. It's like, it's scratch to scratch offs and it's like $1,000 a week for life, right? Like that is the possibility of getting into the service business. And I know we kind of talk about like a lot of the downfalls of it, but the upside is
Phenomenal.
astronomical. A few of these sources, well, you won't even have to worry about thrift stores anymore. I think to myself, if I had 5, maybe 10 libraries that I dealt with, I wouldn't even have time to be in the thrift store, and I would pay next to nothing for my inventory. It would literally explode your business overnight. So as much as we're like, hey, there is a lot of, things that come with providing a service, buying in bulk, if the opportunity's there, it can change your business overnight. And just like Johnny said, though, if you start walking back on your word, somebody like me comes along
Yep.
and I ain't going nowhere. Like I got this locked down for life. I mean, it's as
Johnny
silly
will
as it's.
take it all. Mike's picky. I like Johnny. He's less problems.
Yeah, or like, you're doing the service and then it's like when they hit me up on the phone, hey, we're ready for a pickup. I'm like, unfortunately, I need you to bring it to me this month. Like, that's not gonna work. And unfortunately, if you think it is, there's gonna be somebody else that comes along, like me or Johnny, and is gonna be like, hey, I'll take it. You don't gotta worry about loading it up. And all of a
Yep.
sudden, boom, you're in. The deal's done. You never have to worry about anything else.
We were talking about this, my media call, but we were talking about my other group in Max's group. There's a gentleman that also runs that group. His name's Cody. He has a brilliant service industry thing going on. Basically, his business model is to put gaylords in the back of like mom and pop shops. Like, look, all the stuff you don't want, put it in here. Call me when it's full. He'll come in, back his truck up, or somehow, some way they get it out the door and just pop it on his truck. He'll drop up an empty for them to continue doing that while he'll take the full and just keep on going. He has multiple connections like that. I'm like, you are running a pickup service industry model, and that's good. He also has a barn because he lives out in the country, so he has a facility to process this huge quantity of books. Um, I think that's a great business model if you want to be the pickup guy in your area and slowly expand your bubble as your business grows. You're gonna do phenomenal, and he is. He's doing great. But he is the business. He has to go pick it up. He has to do the negotiation. And in the media call, we kind of took it a step further. Like, okay, but if you're the business, can you really send an employee to do the pickup? Because you may lose out an opportunity, or that employee may say something that offends the people that you, as the owner, would never do. And whether the employee realizes or not, they may have cost you that thing. So there is some risk being the pickup only guy. Is it always you 100% of the time? Or not. I mean, there are plenty of people that run industries that send employees out to do work, sure, but you got to do it very carefully and very safely if you plan to grow that service industry with employees.
Yeah, the only pivot to that would be just having donation bins where they're just in parking lots. And there's validity to that. But I'll tell you right now, I used to have Better Worlds Books, one of the biggest booksellers. They used to have bins all over the place, Johnny. There's like 6 in my immediate area I can go to. I'm
Mhm.
down to 1. They've gotten rid of the other 5, right? So we try to decipher why, if they're getting this stuff for free, maybe they pay a small fee to have their bin in the parking lot. Um, why would they ever have less donation bins? Well, what happens here is you get a lot of junk, right? You got donation bins. People are probably throwing dirty diapers in there and God knows what else, right? Even though it says books, books only, right? People don't read, they don't care. And usually these donation bins, there's other donation bins by them, right? They got the clothing and shoes donation bins,
Yep.
all the different donation bins. So they went from 6 bins, and now I have one measly bin in my area. So it's not all, oh, I'm going to go buy donation bins and I'm going to get rich, or I'm going to put gaylords in the back of thrift stores and I'm going to get rich, right? You have to understand those sources because what happens if you partner up with a thrift store and say, hey, here's your gaylord, fill it up. It takes them 2 years to fill up the gaylord.
Right, they never call you except once every 2 years. Yeah.
It don't work.
Uh, yeah, and back to the bin pickup thing. We got one guy. I'm convinced it's one guy in town. There's one right beside my shop at the gas station. There's a donation bin. That thing is always full, always overflowing. There's 6
Yeah.
more in town. I've looked at these things just out of curiosity. It's got the same branding, so I assume he picks up from these places. I, again, I'm convinced it's the same guy. I see him come out for the one that I'm next to, and that thing is like full, and he's like doing these trash bags. But to your point, I see what gets dropped off there too, and I'm telling you, a lot of it junk. A lot of it is, unless it's a nonprofit thing. I'm convinced it's not. It's some very smart reseller who, hey, let me not deal with the inner city. Let me deal with smaller towns. I'm going to get better rates to put my bins on because it's a rental thing. because I've called about book bin donation thing because I was like, that guy's genius. I'm gonna do the same thing with those books. It's expensive out here. Well, it's not. I think it's expensive. I don't know the rates in cities, but out here it'd be $50 per thing, but it's based off the owner, what they're willing to do. But I called around a few owners and the averaged out about 50. So you're paying a rental fee to do these pickup. You're going to get a lot of benefit more than you're spending, of course. But you're also going to get a lot of junk. And they can renegotiate terms. It's usually on those, it's a month to month, right? Like, you know what? 50 this month, next month rolls around. It's 150. Triple. Why? Because I can.
Yeah.
Them's the breaks.
And I mean, what happens if, you have, like you said, resellers in your area that go dump all their duds in your bin?
There's one outside the daycare center. I guarantee you there's so many unspeakable things in there.
I mean, that's what you run the risk, and that's why I think you do have a benefit if you go down the route of, okay, hey, send me a few photos. People should have no problem sending you photos before you go do a pickup, right? No matter what it is. Just be, hey, send me a few photos and you can make a decision based on that. Don't feel like just because they reach out to you that you're committed to this relationship, right? If you don't have the photos yet, you don't know what's going on. Just because they said, hey, I have books for you, doesn't mean you're guaranteed to go pick them up, right? That's not sealed in stone at all. You're not committing to that immediately. You're going to ask for more information and imply and try to dig a little bit deeper. And when it comes to buying in bulk and providing a service for, hey, we're this huge company that has all this excess inventory. Kind of like, like you're talking about daily refinement, right? He's just all new with tag stuff, excess inventory. That opportunity is there, but you understand, okay, well, this is what I'm getting. This is how much I'm paying. And then boom, you just move on from there, understanding every situation that's different, every brand that's different. And in his case, and us, every category that's different. There's going to be different nuances, and you're not going to be perfect. You're always going to be learning. You're always going to be, refining your process of providing the service to a company or another person, right? Because sometimes it's a thrift store, sometimes it's a brand, sometimes it's a single person that's got a lot of stuff. Every situation kind of involves a different temperament and a different structure of the conversation.
We had this fun discussion maybe a couple years ago. It's probably one of the more fun discussions I remember. What if you were the pick up everything guy and then you had like a once a month sale, a gigantic space, right? And you just charged $1 for everything in there. You took whatever your business core model is, and this place is just like $1 a piece thing. Doesn't matter how many pieces you take. You want the full furniture set, it's X times $1. That would be I think you would take over the reselling world as the pickup guy, but man, you're gonna have
No.
so many issues with that. You're gonna need a guy. I think we came down to, yeah, it'll work brilliantly, but you're gonna need a guy at the door with a gun. That's the
Yeah,
bottom line.
well, and you would need, I mean, at the end of the day, a lot of these, clean out companies that take everything, they always wind up having multiple people, right? Like, so, and even bulk booksellers, John Muscarella, Side Hustle Experiment, before he switched to online arbitrage, he told me to get rid of his duds. He had somebody that would come take craft books, somebody that would come take children's books. So, like, there's more pieces to the puzzle than you just taking everything because you
Yes.
have to have an outlet for everything. And I feel like it would be the same way if you went into somebody's house and took everything, right? You don't know what to do with this stuff. So you probably have like an antique person, maybe a media person, maybe a furniture person like Jameson, right? Come take all the furniture. So there's a lot more headaches that go into being the everything person. Especially if you're going to take I want no parts of this. I mean, I won't
Right.
even take it.
Furniture is heavy, especially the older furniture. That stuff weighs more than your vehicle sometimes. But no, it would work. But man, you're gonna have so many logistics to figure out and so many problems. And if you want to go on this endeavor, you're gonna make a lot of money, but you're gonna be very sore, very tired, and always busy. More busier than even me. Um, yeah, and then what was the other? Oh, the clearance guys, the guys that do the Target clearance sales. They can usually get better deals than what it says on the ticket clearance. I think those guys are providing a service to those bigger box stores. And that's why they're able to get stuff for like 98% off.
Yep.
Because they're willing to take it all. Like I know a gentleman who deals with Lowe's, but he'll have to take the tractors if they're tractors. He'll have to take the saw blades, the hammers, the sawhorses, all tools that are on clearance to get the premium deal he has. But again, it comes down to that logistical nightmare of having to take it all odd shapes, from tractors on down to little tiny screws.
Yeah, and I know there's people that source at Ollie's and they'll go in and if they see a product, they got to buy every single one the store
Yeah.
has to get their special discount. So you have to, if you're going to play this game, you're going to have to pony up some money from time to time. And not everybody's going to be a great buy, but there are opportunities. Like we just said, Ollie's and Lowe's, right? Even your retail establishments or your clearance, your secondhand stores like Ollie's, like you
Yeah.
can still cut deals behind the scenes. It's just they're not going to cut you a deal for buying 5 shampoos. They want you to buy the whole pallet of shampoo.
Yeah. Again, you're providing a very much service to these.
Service, yeah, because they want it all going, right?
Right, they want it all gone. They want their space back, just like we're always fighting space and media. They want their space back because they had the same issue. Because they want to roll new stuff in that'll sell. They don't want to wait around the next summer for when this stuff will sell. So they pass that on to people coming in to do those take it all deals, or the little bit of stuff the average Joe picks up on the clearance rack. But they're hoping a non-average Joe walks in. All right, solve my problem. We'll cut you a deal, 98% off. But then again, to do that kind of stuff at one of these things, that is very capital intensive. You're going to be writing a big check. You're going to make a whole lot of money. Don't get me wrong, but you're gonna be squinting at your bank account as you're writing that check. Is here you go. Um, what was the other one we were mentioning while we were talking? Online service.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that was the other one. I'll let you lead on that one.
So online service, it's kind of a balancing act, but I realized there are opportunities, right? Like CT bids. I bought things from CT bids, and usually, they just take a picture of a bookcase, boom, like the one Johnny's got behind him, boom, bookcase starts at $0. You win the auction, you show up, you have conversations with these people, right? It's an estate sale company, and you can build relationships, and they just want the stuff going, right? That's why it starts at $0. It's not like they start the bookcase off at $50 and they're trying to be greedy. They literally are like, we don't care if somebody wins this for $1. I've won bookcases for well under $5 multiple times. They don't care what they get. It's the idea of the service that Mike's going to show up and take the stuff off the bookcase no matter where it's at in the house. And they usually don't tell you where it's at in the house, and it's never close to the door.
Mystery. It always is.
Yeah, and it's like, but yet again, that opens up a whole new door for you to go in, have a conversation. Hey, what are you doing? Why are you buying all these books? What are you doing with this? And that's how you evolve your business from the Goodwill prices are going up and my reselling is dead because I only go to the Goodwill and I don't talk to nobody and I'm a loser reseller. You're not going to survive no more, unfortunately. I'm just here to tell you this. You need to level up your game. You need to start networking, not like talking to me and Johnny. Talk to people that got stuff to give you for next to nothing. Those are the people you got to get in your corner. And it only takes a few. If I told anybody listening to this that you could get a car full of basically next to free inventory once a month by having a stupid conversation of, hey, how's it going today? Oh, yeah, I got an online bookstore, an online clothing store. I support my family with it, right? And then as a bookseller, I always bring up my cats. Everybody loves cats. You got books, you got to have cats, right? So it's like all of a sudden, the conversation evolves into something. Then you're in the back room. Then you get an infinite supply of fresh inventory, right? The fresh, non-picked over, the gold inventory.
I had an interesting one that I didn't think about just now that it very much goes to service. So I had a gentleman message me on Facebook. I run an ad for the store every now and then on Facebook. It never really goes away. It just gets buried deeper in Facebook's algorithm. So he messaged me on one of my older ads. And it was my cheap outside book ads. He's like, look, I got an Airbnb. I'm looking for some book staging books. So the price is really what you say they are because I guarantee you there's not many people with ads for 10-cent books or 10 for $1 outside books out there. So he was looking for cheap books just for house staging. I was offering a service. Well, was I offering a service? I guess it's a weird pseudo service thing that I never would have thought in a million years. I mean, I know I could sell stuff on eBay and some of that stuff goes to like stages for Hollywood or Airbnbs or home decorator real estate people, but I never would have thought they're going to come to bookstores to do this too. I didn't make that connection until he messaged me like, oh, really? Wow. Huh. I am providing you a service for your Airbnb, I guess. Um, and so that has my headspace noodling in other things along that lines. Like, really, maybe I should contact everybody in Airbnb. I got the cheapest books in town, yo.
It's it's important though, because everything's online anymore. And it doesn't take much work to put an ad out, right? I always tell everybody, if I can do it, if I can create a Craigslist ad, um, then do it. I will say this, if you do go down the route of putting your information out there online, sure, you're gonna wind up with a lot of people that flake out, a lot of conversations that's time wasted, but there's also a big benefit to it. And what I realize is the easier it is for them to contact you, the more hits you're gonna get, right? So I put a picture of myself in my ad now, right? It's not just a robot, it's not just text. Be personable. I think that's another thing that comes with providing a service is the more personable you can be, the more comfortable the other person on the other side feels, right? Because they don't know who they're talking to. If I don't have a picture of myself, they don't know who they're talking to. The next, unsolved mystery case is about to happen. And in these cases, make sure you're just being safe, I guess, overall. So, Johnny, final thoughts on providing a service as a reseller and how it can level your business up.
I'm actually gonna give everybody a freebie one that they could do that I refuse to do because it gives me the heebie-jeebies. You can, if you so choose. Again, this is just a personal conflict for me personally, but you can go to funeral homes and offer to be the clean out guy when the family comes there to handle the service. Again, if they'll hand out your car, like, look, this is the book clean out guy or the whatever. If you're not going through a estate sale company, contact this guy. It gives me the heebie-jeebies for reasons I can't explain. I choose not to go that route. Estate sales is my line when it comes to death in the family. But that is an opportunity for someone listening out there. Those are my final thoughts. I get to end in creepy, Mike.
I'm gonna tack on to that because I watched a show called Extreme Cheapskates, and there was an episode where this girl, she sold vintage clothes. And she did exactly what Johnny just said, and I was literally mind blown, like there's no way I could ever do this. So she would pull the obituaries from the newspaper and
Yeah,
go
see,
to
I just can't do that. Yeah.
and she would go to the house, knock on the door, and yes, yes, I'm telling you, look it up. Look it up.
No, I believe you. I'm just shocked.
And she would have a conversation with, the son or the husband or the daughter, whoever's there, and be like, hey, I have a business where, I sell vintage clothes, and I think it would be great if we could get some of, your grandmother's clothes into other people's hands. And believe it or not, some of these people would invite this lady right on in, and she would go right to their closet and pick out, vintage pieces that were probably worth God knows how much money. But, whatever floats your boat. I can
Yeah, I
never.
could see her upselling it to like, look, you can use the money to subsidize some of your funeral expenses. To get
It's
that on.
there's a
But I couldn't
million
do it, man. I couldn't do it.
there's a million different ways to provide a service, and just the lowest hanging fruit is just posting a free ad. I don't pay for none of my ads. It'll only take you 5 minutes to do, and then you just renew it every week, every 2 weeks, and you'll be amazed at the opportunities it creates for your business, whether it's media, clothing, shoes, video games. A lot of the huge video game sellers, they thrive on buying collections, right? You can buy collections online. You provide the service. Why would Mike want to sell his Halloween collection? Because he needs the money, or this X situation happened and it needs to be gone. Like maybe I'm moving, and that I ran into that as well. Somebody's moving, they need everything gone. They're moving to Florida, and they're not going to take their 5,000 pounds of books to Florida. So just understand there's opportunities. You're a reseller, but you also can capitalize on providing a service. So that's going to be it for this week's episode. We'll talk to you guys in next week's episode.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Resellers Mindset Podcast. Today's full episode and all previous episodes are available to all YouTube members, along with the weekly Zoom call and private Discord. Head on over to youtube.com/theusebookguy and consider joining for as little as $2.99 a month.